You wake up on payday feeling powerful. You check your bank app and suddenly the number looks bigger than it has in weeks, maybe even months, and for a brief moment you feel in control, responsible, like you're finally catching up. And then 3 days later, you open that same app with a strange mix of anxiety and denial, and the number has dropped so fast it almost feels like someone else is using your account. You replay your purchases in your head: groceries, gas, maybe dinner out, a few subscriptions. Nothing crazy, nothing reckless, nothing that screams financial disaster, and yet somehow you are almost back to survival mode before the month has even started. So you blame yourself. You tell yourself you lack discipline, that you need a better budget, a stricter routine, more willpower. But what if the problem is not that you are irresponsible? What if the real problem is that your entire financial environment is structured to make you feel rich for 48 hours and broke for the next 28 days? What if your salary is not empowering you but psychologically manipulating you? Because here is the uncomfortable truth nobody explains clearly. The modern paycheck is not designed to build wealth. It is designed to sustain a cycle, and the cycle depends on you feeling temporarily relieved and permanently pressured. Think about the timing. Your income arrives in one concentrated spike, a single deposit that creates a surge of perceived abundance. Behavioral economists call this a liquidity illusion. When a sudden increase in available cash tricks your brain into overestimating your actual financial position, your mind does not process that money as already committed to rent, insurance, utilities, loan payments, subscriptions, and future groceries. It processes it as available, flexible, spendable. And that temporary perception shift changes your behavior. You loosen slightly, you upgrade slightly, you justify slightly. Because after all, you just got paid, you worked for this. You deserve to feel comfortable, and there is nothing wrong with comfort. But here is the first twist. Most of your money was already gone before it arrived. It just had not left your account. Yet rent is due, automatic payments are queued, subscriptions are scheduled, credit card balances are waiting to be cleared. The paycheck does not create freedom. It creates a countdown, and that countdown begins the second the deposit hits. Now add another layer. Most recurring expenses are clustered around the beginning of the month. Housing, insurance premiums, streaming platforms, gym memberships, software tools, phone bills, car payments. Everything is synchronized with the salary cycle, not because of a conspiracy, but because that is how the system evolved. Companies align billing with predictable income patterns, and when every bill hits during your highest perceived liquidity window, your bank balance drops aggressively in a short period of time, which amplifies the emotional shock. It feels like your money disappears overnight, even though technically it was allocated all along. This rapid drop creates stress, and stress narrows decision-making. When you feel financially squeezed early in the month, you switch into defensive mode, which ironically makes long-term planning harder. So instead of building systems, you start reacting. You cut randomly. You postpone investing. You promise yourself next month will be different. But next month repeats the same pattern because the structure has not changed. Now here is the second twist. Even if you are not overspending, your fixed costs may be expanding quietly year after year. Lifestyle creep is not about buying luxury cars. It is about small permanent upgrades that become invisible. You move to a slightly nicer apartment, your internet plan gets faster. Your phone gets newer, your subscriptions stack. One for music, one for video, one for cloud storage, one for fitness, one for productivity. Each individual cost feels minor, but together they convert flexibility into rigidity. And rigidity is what makes you feel broke, because when most of your income is locked into fixed obligations, you have no room to breathe. And when unexpected expenses hit, a medical bill, a car repair, a family emergency, it feels catastrophic. Not because the expense is massive, but because your margin is thin, and margin is the real measure of financial peace, not income. You can earn a solid salary and still live with constant pressure if your fixed structure consumes nearly all of it. And this is where many people misunderstand the problem. They think increasing income alone will solve it. But if your structure scales with your income, the pressure remains. You earn more, you upgrade more, you normalize higher expenses, and your new baseline becomes your new trap. The middle class does not typically live in a poverty trap. It lives in a cash flow trap, a pattern where income is sufficient, but timing and structure create perpetual tightness. And the trap is subtle because it looks like progress. You have more than before, better than before, newer than before. Yet emotionally you feel the same tension at the end of every month. So what actually changes this pattern? First, you have to separate income from availability in your mind. The moment your salary hits, mentally reduce it by your fixed obligations, not roughly, precisely. Know your true free cash number within 24 hours. This reframes the spike. Instead of seeing one large number, you see two numbers, committed and flexible. And only the flexible portion is real decision space. Second, shift from calendar-based spending to cash flow-based design. Instead of allowing all bills to cluster at the beginning, explore whether some payments can be distributed across the month. Many services allow date adjustments. Spreading outflows reduces the psychological crash effect and smooths your balance curve. Third, implement a 48-hour rule for all non-essential purchases during the first week after payday. This is when your brain is most vulnerable to liquidity illusion. Delaying decisions during this window dramatically reduces regret spending, not because you lack discipline, but because you are respecting behavioral timing. Fourth, compress fixed costs before trying to optimize variable ones. Most people obsess over coffee and dining out, while ignoring major structural expenses like housing, car costs, insurance tiers, subscription stacks. Renegotiating or eliminating just one or two recurring commitments can permanently widen your margin, and margin is what gives you options. Options reduce stress, and reduced stress improves long-term decisions. Fifth, automate growth before comfort. If investing, saving, or emergency fund transfers happen after discretionary spending, they will constantly lose. Reverse the order. Treat saving as a fixed cost aligned with payday so that your future self gets paid first, and your current self adjusts to the remaining structure. None of this requires extreme frugality or guilt. It requires design, because the real issue was never that you are bad with money. It is that you are operating inside a system optimized for predictable consumption cycles. And predictable consumption cycles are profitable for companies, stable for institutions, and emotionally draining for individuals who do not intentionally design their flow. The goal is not to reject the system, but to understand it deeply enough that you stop being surprised by it. Once you see that the paycheck spike is a psychological event as much as a financial one, you stop reacting to it impulsively. You start treating payday not as celebration but as allocation day, a strategic reset point where you assign roles to every dollar based on priorities, not emotions, and something subtle happens. When you do this consistently, the feeling of being broke shifts. You may still have the same income, the same bills, the same responsibilities, but the anxiety reduces because you are no longer confused. Confusion creates stress. Clarity creates control, and control creates confidence, and confidence compounds just like money does, slowly, quietly, over time. The people who break out of the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle are rarely the ones who suddenly double their income overnight. They are the ones who redesign timing, structure, and margin. Gradually, they treat cash flow as a system, not a mood. They understand that a bank balance snapshot means nothing without context, and they stop judging themselves based on day 3 numbers. Because day 3 numbers are supposed to drop in a clustered billing model, the real metric becomes end-of-month stability and growth trajectory, not mid-month emotion. So the next time your salary hits and you feel that surge of relief, pause, acknowledge it, but do not let it dictate your decisions. Run your allocation plan first, protect your margin, delay your upgrades, and remember that feeling temporarily rich and permanently pressured is not a personal flaw. It is a predictable outcome of how modern income cycles interact with human psychology. Once you internalize that, the shame disappears, the panic reduces, and strategy replaces impulse. And that is the moment you stop asking why you are always broke after salary day and start asking how you want your cash flow to behave over the next 5 years. Because wealth is not built in the 48 hours after payday. It is built in the quiet, structured decisions that follow. And most people never understand how these systems work. If you do not want to be one of them, subscribe.